So we are here today with John O'Donnell, President and CEO of WANADA, Washington Area New
Automobile Dealers Association.
We haven't gotten that right for 2 weeks.
We'll get it right from now on, we promise.
That's why I hold the job. I got it right.
That's right. I got he's like, my first week I spent memorizing that. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Glad you're here.
Yeah, we are too. It's our first policy event. So it's like a little bit of a new crowd for us, but we're excited about that. Tell us just a little bit of history of the show. So you've been kind of in with WANADA for a decade now.
No, I've been the CEO for a decade. I've been with them, as I was mentioning, since 9/11, the 9/11. The association started in 1917, and the auto show wasn't far behind that, but there was a large break for World War II.
They're like,
naturally.
Pause operations. We're going to make tanks for a while, munitions, right?
Yep, exactly right. And then the only other break we've had was 1 year during the pandemic, during COVID.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we've been known as the public policy show on the worldwide auto show circuit for about 15 to 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
We should have done this a long time ago.
Yeah,
It's
and
really,
it makes
really
sense. I mean, we're right in the middle of Washington, D.C. right now. The White House is, 3 blocks away, it feels like.
Yeah. Very close by. So we're very fortunate. We get regulators, members of the president's cabinet, members of Congress, and the most important group, believe it or not, are the worker bees, the staffers. So today, later today, you'll see approximately 130, 150 staffers from various members of Congress or regulatory bodies that will come around and speak with all of the product specialists from the various manufacturers. And we've been told that they get more done in terms of lobbying the federal government in 1 day than they do in a year.
I believe
That's
this.
incredible. Yeah, it's that one-to-one connection relationship, a person, not just a product or an email. It's a person and a person having a conversation.
Very powerful.
Yeah, it's a powerful day. So what do you think the goal or the intention out of today? What do you think some of how the big topics and what the desire is from the manufacturers or the dealers that are present today?
So I think everybody knows it's all EVs these days, right? Last year on Public Policy Day, the White House sent over Jennifer Granholm and Ali Zaidi, the National White House Climate Advisor, and the Department of Energy, of course, for Ms. Granholm, to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act's EV tax credit and which cars were going to qualify and which weren't.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, we all know what is
happened
happening
there.
with EV
Right.
adoption. It's just not where the government would like to see it. So one of the things that probably will be discussed today will be expanding that list of who qualifies, right? Yeah, they put a lot of restrictions on it, and I think they are now realizing adoption would be quicker if there was more of an incentive to a larger group of manufacturers and people.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Do you think that's going to work?
No.
We didn't either. There's something about the consumer driving what they buy.
That's just it. At the end of the day, the consumer has to want it at some level. There has to be enough demand. I think what you're finding right now, at least from the people I'm speaking to, if you buy a pure electric vehicle as your primary vehicle, you don't re-up. You don't get another pure electric. You take a step backwards into a battery electric hybrid.
Right.
I actually drive a Lincoln Corsair just to learn about the technology right now.
Yeah.
Without even trying, I'm averaging 46 miles to the gallon.
Right.
Right? So you
that
use
math translates really quickly to a consumer.
Yeah, right. They get that. And they also have the reliability of the combustion engine. They don't want to be stranded.
It's a common story.
Because they can't find a charger.
Yeah. We were just talking today about what's happening in Chicago with Teslas and people not being able, not having the wherewithal and the process with which to charge. Do you feel that days like today can have the consumer in the conversation? How does that map, and how does WANADA work to make sure that the consumer is actually in the conversation and not just the relationship between the manufacturers and the policymakers?
Yeah, great point. And remind me to come back to the Society of Automotive Engineers. They have their government industry meeting here. We serve as their host, so I'll come back to them in a moment. But the show is owned and operated by the association. The association is the dealers.
Yeah.
The dealers are the consumer's advocate, right? Because the dealer's buying those cars from the manufacturer, and unless they can unload those cars onto the general public,
Right.
they're stuck with them.
Stop spinning.
They've paid
Yeah.
for them. So they usually want to buy product that they know the consumer's going to
Yes.
It's amazing how that works.
It's like if you own a
Yeah.
restaurant, you probably stock
And
the
people
wine
want-
shelf
right.
and the beer shelf with what people buy more.
What
right?
a unique idea.
basic math.
Yeah.
Basic math. You said to remind you to come back to the SAE.
So we serve as the host for the engineers' annual government industry meeting. About 3 or 4 years ago, I was talking to one of their key people, and we identified something that is readily apparent to the three of us. But the engineers are always worried about design and efficiency and very technical aspects of cars. They have no idea how cars actually get retailed.
Mm,
And yet they're the ones designing them.
yeah.
Then we started talking about the time frame. From the time a car is intellectually conceived to time it's put in production is about 3 years.
Right.
Well, consumer sentiment changes during 3 years,
Dramatically.
usually.
Sure does.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about a platform change.
Yeah. So I think that the government needs to recognize, yes, we're going to embrace EVs, but I think the California law, where there's a timetable and then the elimination of combustion engine cars in 2035, is just a gigantic mistake.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and it seems like the adoption is moving out of California, right? And we're seeing it in larger places like New York, like DC, like those places.
Yeah, a lot of the blue states just signed on thematically because they said, oh,
It fit the
California must
narrative.
have it right.
It fit the narrative.
Yep.
Last question. How does auto show attendance, how's it ranking up these days? And what would you say to the OEMs who are opting out of participating?
Well, first of all, I think they're making a big mistake, and I can explain why. The year after the pandemic, when Omicron, do you remember Omicron?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cereal? What a
Yeah, didn't want to remember it, but we had to. Our attendance was off by about 50%,
Off pre-COVID levels.
off of pre-COVID
Yeah.
levels. The following year, no Omicron year,
Yep.
we bounced right back exactly to where our pre-COVID attendance was. We're the largest event in Washington, D.C., indoor event. The Cherry Blossom Festival is an outdoor
There's
event.
the thing
Yeah,
about that.
Yeah. So we're always battling for number one and number two. But attendance, I'm anticipating, is going to be very strong this year. And you were mentioning, what about the manufacturers that aren't here? Tesla's in. Lucid is in.
There's a Cybertruck right behind you.
Polster's in.
Exact.
Right.
Polestar's in. These guys know where the customers are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think what you have with certain manufacturers is budgetary constraints, a belief that my buyer isn't at your auto show.
And it's not even, I don't even think like.
And that's
how-
nonsense.
budgetary constraints is an easy scapegoat,
Yep.
but really it's budgetary priority, right, is not being put here.
They love
the money
digital.
is here to right. They love digital, but like you just said, with the amount that gets done in person, face to face, from a
Right.
lobbying standpoint, to not think that human to human contact doesn't transfer to like I'm here and there's I was just looking at the new Hyundai Santa Fe,
Yeah,
right? It's not a car that I would migrate to, but I opened it up, I was like, I think I would consider this car.
absolutely.
There's an
The
EV test track.
opportunity for manufacturers to make conquests when your competitor isn't present.
Yes.
Hello.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yep.
The DC market ranks number 3 in the country in terms of overall population when you give me
Yeah.
a little leeway. You throw in Baltimore. Per capita income, super strong. We have 7 of the 10 richest counties in the nation here.
Wow.
And yet you've got people like BMW and Audi and Mercedes saying, well, our buyer isn't there.
Really?
Well, excuse me, Rolls Royce
And
and
McLaren.
Aston Martin are
I'm
making
looking at 3
reveals here
McLarens
today.
over there
Right.
right now.
Last year, we sold 3 exotics off the floor
Yeah,
of the show.
they like
Wow.
wasting
At
money.
price points triple
Absolutely.
what Mercedes, BMW, and Audi are selling.
Yeah.
So I think eventually that they'll say, maybe we should return.
Well,
Yeah.
John, thank you so much for just serving the industry in this way, but making the show happening and giving us some of your time today.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the time. And most of all, I appreciate the pin you gave me.
There you go.